Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dishes and Dimes. My name is Iman, and I am joined by um, someone who might be a Twitter villain. you know, we've all heard of LeBronto. And today I'm introducing Cavs Justin Rowan himself, co-host of the Chase Down podcast with Carter Rodriguez. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing well. I think my villain days are in my past. I don't have the
Oh, a
energy to tweet.
retired villain.
Yeah, I'll still bring it out every now and then, but for the most part, I don't have the energy to be on Twitter. Every account is bots. I'm not going to
Gosh, yeah.
argue with people with player profile PFPs. Like, no, the conversations I actually want to have are the ones like we're going to have today. So
Valid,
I'll
very fair. I feel the
yeah.
same way. Twitter's become a cesspool and um yeah, and it's a lot of and you know what? Also, like I feel like a lot of Raptors Twitter is a lot of people that are unfamiliar with your work or unfamiliar with your villainy. Is that a word? We have
I think that's fair. Twitter is now like, especially fan bases, it's so much younger now. I feel like people are probably just in here from 2019, 2020, all that. Like they don't know. They're just saying, I feel like the online landscape has changed a whole lot. And there's just not a lot of value hanging out there and arguing in the Twitter streets like there used to be. Not that there actually ever was, but at least back then it was real people or people
yeah.
that have been watching for more than a couple of years. It's just not worth it these days.
Yeah, like I agree, and I find that I don't get into it a lot. I'm always like, yeah, like I just I'm just gonna keep it moving, head over to Blue Sky, maybe where it's all sunshine and rainbows and a little scary. I find Blue Sky like very Stepford Wivesy, where it's just like are we all real over here? It feels very made up. But I was on Twitter, and the one time I decided to argue, um because again I go through like these waves now where my brain full capacity, my brain no capacity, which is right now. Try to argue with me, I have nothing for you. But I was in an arguing mood. I had an energy drink, which also just wonderful. And so I was ready to argue with people. But the arguments that I was having, I was just like, oh, like this is a completely like I was defending DeMar DeRozan. And it was a bunch of Raptor fans being like trash, garbage, can't win a game, can't do anything. And I'm like, what is this world in this universe where and they were like, you should be talking about Kyle Lowry like that. Like, what do you mean he led the team or he helped build the team and created an identity? That was Kyle. And I'm like, I'm the person arguing that it was like that it was DeMar and Kyle together and not to just give like I'm like, oh wow, like times have changed and like the entire fan base has shifted. And I guess it's like younger people who maybe weren't watching then, and so it wasn't the DeMar fans, but it's really funny. It's like a completely new landscape where I've become the Kyle Lowry hater and the DeMar DeRozan supporter. And I'm like, I don't like it.
They weren't here for DeMar and Sonny Weems, okay? They didn't know what that was
they
all
weren't.
about.
They weren't here for Young Guns Raptors.
Exactly.
Our LA guys, yeah. Who like at the time, how much of a DeMar DeRozan believer I believe that Sonny Weems was like the face. I was like, he's the young guy that we
Oh,
should.
I was
I was like,
really,
my
really in on
money
Sonny
is on
Weems.
Sonny,
Yeah.
not on this DeMar guy. Which things
I was
changed.
also very big on Marco Bellinelli. I thought
Oh
that
yeah.
he had the goods. Yeah.
Yeah. I also like love Linus Glazer. Just talking about Europeans that I
Oh
love.
yeah,
Love
yeah.
me some
That
Linus Glazer.
great role guy. Great role
Oh,
guy. Is this just
fantastic.
going to devolve into naming players
Yeah,
from like
because
the early mid
that's
2000s?
better than talking about this series.
Hey,
I'm not having fun.
whatever direction you want to take this in, that's fine with me.
Sandy, are you having fun with this Cleveland Cavalier Toronto Raptors series?
Honestly, I'm so triggered by anything Cavs that I'm just kind of sitting here just like, ugh. I'm just dreading tomorrow. I just know that we're gonna like lose in this embarrassing way. And just continue the legacy of just losing to the Cavs, even though LeBron isn't here anymore. So I'm dreading talking about the Cavs and the Raptors at this point.
Let's get into it. Let's actually get into the series a little bit. Because it hasn't been the most fun. I mean, game one happened. I mean, it probably was great for you, Justin. You're probably having a great time being Toronto Raptors. And to Sandy's point, we do consistently lose. I think the record now is 12 games, which is tied for the most in the NBA. And so if the Raptors lose game three, history is on the line. You do not want to be there by yourself. But looking at game one and two, I honestly, and I was talking to Justin about this before we recorded, I don't feel like the Cavs are unbeatable. And nothing that we've seen this series makes me feel like that. Game one, thought they thoroughly outclassed the Raptors. Coming into the series, I thought if the Raptors want to win a game in Cleveland, I thought game one was the one to win. It's an early start, and as Raptor fans know, when you're the higher seed and it's a midday start, things can kind of go really poorly for you, and I thought it was the game that the Raptors could possibly take. They also just play faster than the Cleveland Cavaliers do. I thought if they just sort of dictated their pace, and Cleveland hadn't played the Raptors since November, I feel like the Raptors are one of those teams where it kind of is a little similar to the Detroit Pistons in that you're like, oh yeah, this is how you play, and you have to sort of adjust to them, playing with the physicality and the toughness and the speed. And the Raptors brought in absolutely none of that. Instead, they were just out here shooting threes and not playing a lick of defense, and it felt very weird. And they were playing incredibly slow. They let the Cleveland Cavaliers dictate the pace. Now, what did you see in Game One there as well?
I had those same fears, particularly because the Cavs have been really, really bad at those early starts. Like
Mm,
all season, they have had just some horrific games in those kind of early windows. And it seemed like, those early start times, those are games that can usually get really sloppy. Like,
yeah,
I would have expected the number of turnovers we saw in game two to happen in game one, right? Like, that's what I was expecting. I expected Toronto to be able to get out and run in those types of situations. You start the game with, two not strong 3-point shooters in Jamal Shed and Scotty Barnes knocking down a ton of threes. It's like, okay, none of these are the guys you're supposed to ignore and leave open, but they're converting all these shots, but they weren't able to get any of those transition opportunities, right? They really dictated the pace. And it seemed like, Dean Wade was kind of top locking Brandon Ingram, making it hard on the catch and things like that. The times that he did score, it wasn't like he was getting all the way to the rim. He was just kind of hitting those shots from the mid range. And it just kind of felt like BI didn't want to work that hard for a full 48 minutes. And he kind of took himself out of the game in the second half.
yeah,
And I'm interested to see kind of how that dynamic goes, because before the series, the two things that I felt were going to dictate each individual game was pace, like which
yeah,
team is controlling the pace and which team's getting downhill.
yeah.
If Brandon Ingram's not able to get downhill and create the advantage, get the Cavs defense into rotation and create opportunities for himself and others, and same thing with Scotty Barnes, I don't know if you're going to be able to generate enough points in the half court. So those are kind of the two things that I'm keeping an eye on. But I'm with you. I think that there are reasons for Toronto to be, somewhat optimistic that they can punch back and extend the series.
Yeah, no, and you sort of mentioned it, that BI Dean Wade, and I didn't know who the Cavs would start at the three. Were you sure that it would be Dean Wade going into that?
Yeah, we felt really, really good about Dean on Brandon Ingram. Like, it just kind of feels like he's built in a lab to defend BI. So
Unless BI gets
we're
downhill, no? Like that's a sort of
yeah,
like
but the thing is, Dean has, he's 6'9",
yeah,
he's strong, and he's really like, you look at kind of the tracking data, he's like 95th percentile in isolation, he's 95th percentile screen navigation, like he's going to get around in all of those spots.
yeah,
What I worried about is he's only going to play, 24 minutes a night, and BI is going to play 36.
right.
So what does it look like when Jalen Tyson's out there? What's it look like with Max Strus coming off a
Scary
Jones
still
fracture
for the
out there?
Raptors.
Well, I think he at least got Jalen Tyson into foul trouble in that first game. So that was
Yeah,
kind of my big question, because I felt good about at least the Dean Wade minutes.
yeah, very, very fair. So I kind of I saw the same things. I was like, if the Raptors are going to, I mean, looking at, and Sandy, we talked about this, uh, right after the Cleveland Cavaliers made the Harden trade, where we were looking at where the Raptors stood in the Eastern Conference, right? Because the Raptors started to lose a bunch of games, and they were potentially falling into the play-in and things like that. And so we were looking at, well, what team could they match up well against in the playoffs? And I think we both agree that, like, not very many, but if there's going to be one, Cleveland, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, and it turned out we were wrong. Turned out we were wrong. Um, you know what? I think for me at this point of the series, I'm really just looking at the young guys and seeing how they managed to kind of play through the struggles of a playoff series. CMB's been great, Jacoby's been great, but in terms of our the top end of our talent, I'm not seeing franchise players there, right? And I think this particular year, we I think as a fan base, we were kind of just expecting, okay, Scotty, if we make it into the playoff, has to prove that he deserves to be 1A or, you know, 1B on a potentially like a contender. Not that the Raptors are a contender, but you get into the playoffs, you're playing
my dreams.
teams that are good. There are no bad teams in the playoffs, right? And so this was his opportunity to show us that he could actually fill that role and that we could truly build a team around him. And he's been so passive this whole series. Um, like the expectations for Scotty have been crazy because he's playing with, you know, year one, two guys. Um, Ingram isn't really playing. He isn't doing anything that he needs to be doing right now to kind of help carry some of the load that Scotty has to do. So Scotty's playing defense, has to be, an offensive threat, and he's really struggling with that. So I do give him some leeway, but I don't see a franchise player here. And so how do we pivot moving forward with the contracts that we have attached to these players? Yak can barely move. His back is his
It's
back is shot and
cooked.
he's on a crazy contract. Nobody's going to pick that up. If Ingram doesn't show us that he's worth 40 mil a year, that's another fail for the execs up top. We have IQ, who all year I've been saying doesn't deserve the money that he's getting paid. Granted, we need him in this series,
I
unfortunately,
love.
but it's just like where do we go from here? Is if we can't match up with the Cavs, um, I don't see that we have much chance to kind of develop with this team. The floor is pretty and the ceiling is pretty low as well. So I don't know where we go from here.
Yeah, I think those are fair points, and the way that I see it is if I'm like I always compare everything to my favorite teams, which all obviously all star Kyle Lowry, and I think Kyle Lowry is a great sort of floor raiser for what the Raptors were, right? So he gave us the base, but DeMar DeRozan was your ceiling raiser, and obviously once he reached a ceiling he couldn't get past, you needed to bring in a Kawhi Leonard to raise the ceiling even higher. And I look at this Raptors team and I'm like, okay, the floor kind of feels like it's never ending, where we can feel very doom and gloom. But I do think that there are a lot of guys who can raise the ceiling of this team with their improved play. Like we still have some guys. Like I think Scotty Barnes in game one and Scotty Barnes in game two are different guys, right? Like I liked the Scotty Barnes I saw in game 2 more than I saw in the beginning at least of game 1. I agree that he was very passive. I think he was passive in both these games. And Justin, I want to get you in here with your analysis on this Raptors team as someone who obviously doesn't watch them as closely as the two of us, and I'm trying to find some bright spots because I tweeted this out of frustration. I'm like, they're not young enough that I'm like, where like I'm excited to watch their growth outside of the Jacoby Walters and Colin Murray Boyles, but they're still young. Like if I'm trying to like not be in the mindset of being angry that they're down 0-2, I'm like I still expect Scotty Barnes to continue to grow. I think he is a franchise level defender. I think, he's deservedly finished top 5 on defense, although seeing him switched on to James Harden, I'm just like, yeah, not a point of attack defender. James Harden is just blowing by this guy at 30, 100 years old, or however old James Harden is. I see the weaknesses in this team, but I still think there are some bright spots in the fact that you did finish 5th in the East, and you do, I think, game 2 brought me a little bit of optimism where I'm like, this is only a loss because Brandon Ingram decided to have the worst game of his life. So yeah, Justin, what do you think in terms of like, give us some therapy from villain to therapist for Raptor fans? Where are
Yeah,
you?
I'm happy to play therapist here because I don't think that there's too much to get too down on from a Raptors perspective, because one, this Eastern Conference
Sandy's
was
face.
as competitive as it's been, right? Like
Yeah.
even the play-in teams had winning records. This was tough. Like my prediction was actually that Toronto was going to make playoffs and avoid the play-in coming in. Like
Yeah.
I was pretty high on this group coming in. The thing is, and even like the BI contract thing, I got to get my mind around this because I think the same way. But like guys are all of a sudden making 75, 85
Yeah.
million dollars, where it's like, all right, if a guy's like in the all-star mix, probably worth 40 million. Like I
Mm,
don't think you can feel too bad about it. The Yak one's tough. Obviously, he's making like 8 million more than Jared Allen. And I think the main thing with the Raptors is there's going to be a ceiling on your team if you don't kind of have that true lead initiator or someone that just makes everybody else better. Like Quickly's
agreed.
a combo guard, right? Like he's not
Yeah.
a true
Yeah.
initiator. He's not a true point guard. I think the playmaking growth that Scotty's shown this season is meaningful. Like I think it
Yeah.
really does matter. And like the reps he's had kind of running the offense are valuable.
Yeah.
But if you remember back, like when the Milwaukee Bucks were figuring it out, there was a stretch where they had Giannis play point and they're like, all right, like this is, we're going to try to go down this path. And then eventually they're like, let's just bring in a point guard. Let's make things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And those reps helped Giannis, but that still wasn't an ultimate role. And I think if the Raptors bring in someone that legitimately like creates advantages in the half court, makes everyone's life easier, spoon feeds some easy possessions for these guys, all of a sudden you're going to see more consistency. Because the biggest issue with the Raptors isn't, hey, we never feel any highs with this team. It's why are the lulls as like sloppy and bad as they are, right? Like
I
it's
think
why can't we sustain? Why do we have so much variance in our performance?
yeah, Sandy, I'm gonna throw
And
it to you as
we
well.
also need a big, and for me it's annoying
Yeah.
because Bobby, during the trade deadline, we knew what the team was at the trade deadline. We knew that this team, even if they made it to the playoffs, were not going to be dominant in any way, right? So I was expecting, okay, we've gotten rid of Masai. Bobby's now in charge. He has the opportunity to kind of really start establishing the team as his team, not co-piloted by Masai or whatever. And he decides, hey, you know what? We're gonna just watch it play out. And it's like, I understand the point of making the playoffs, especially for the young guys to have that experience. But if we haven't made the playoffs in 5 years and we're finally going to make it, I would like to feel like we have a chance of winning a series. And to be honest, going into this series with the Cavs, I did not feel like that because I feel like we're missing too many pieces to really. We have Jared Allen just running through Yak. CMB's trying his best, right? And
That was this
no, like I'm so impressed with CMB because,
fantastic.
He's so good.
He's really good.
he's doing his best against Jared, and he's really fighting in the paint with a guy that's so much bigger than him, right? So that's really impressive. But can we maybe take the load off CMB? That's not his natural role, and I don't think that's where he should be playing, right? Like if you need him for an off day or like for a good matchup, sure, but you shouldn't have. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into a whole thing. My
The
point is,
lineup I really like, I like a CMB, Scotty, RJ. Like, just in
thank
terms of size,
you.
I like what they do. And then you bring in Jacoby, you get rid of Shed. So sorry, Shed. Not your
Yeah,
series.
Shed. I mean,
I
no.
was really, really surprised. Like, and that's the thing. Shed shot out of his mind in game
Right.
Yep.
one, and that lineup still stunk.
Yep.
Right.
Like they still
Yep.
got absolutely shelled, and they didn't produce offense well. Like
Yeah.
I really, really thought that they were going to go with Jacoby because I feel
It
like he's going to
makes
do a better
sense.
job
We've
on
all
Donovan
been
Mitchell.
It
saying.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It like there's no size there, and if I'm going to continue my role as Raptors therapist here,
Thanks.
I think one of
Appreciate it.
the things that you guys should be encouraged about that went away kind of towards the end of the Nick Nurse run is the player development is now back for the Raptors. Like, you guys are actually bringing
Yeah.
some guys up.
Yeah.
Like, you're seeing fine diamonds in the rough, like a Jamal Shed. Like, even though we don't want him starting, he is still a very useful player.
Six
Right.
man of the
They
year
did with
candidate,
AJ
for
Lawson.
sure.
Great example, right? Like, I think the player development is finally back, and that was like a signature thing with the Raptors. Like, we've talked about it with the Cavs, of that's something that they wanted to emulate, and in recent years they've done that now with the Charge, right, where they're actually churning through some of these G League guys and converting them to full contracts, right? Like Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, Naquan Tomlin, Craig Porter Jr., right? Like, all of these guys are kind of coming up through the system, and you have to find the value in the margins when you have these big contracts. But the Jakob Poeltl thing is just, it's tough, because to me, it really reminds me of, what happened with Jonas, right? And I think if you go back to 2018, the reason the Raptors lost that series, which I picked the Raptors to win that series. Like, I was not feeling confident at all
Supervillain
going
to
into that.
therapist. I mean, from therapist to supervillain again. Mention of that
But-
series. But yeah, no, sorry.
I know, but like, what did they do? It was, okay, we're putting DeRozan and DeRozan and Valanciunas in every single action, and we are going to pick on them. And they're doing the same thing with RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl. Like, let's get Yak to defend in space. RJ, for as much as he's bringing to the table, right? Like, he's got 46 points on 26 shots. That's really good.
I think he's been,
But defensively, the off-ball defense is so bad, and like, I think he genuinely believes that when a screen is set, your responsibility as a defender is to like run into the sternum and like deliver a blow. Like, there's no attempt to go under or over. Like, he just dies on every single screen.
He's like a
It's actually
tryhard,
fun
but,
to
like,
watch.
it's not working. And every time he gets switched on to Harden, my heart just kind of like just falls through my ass. I'm just like, oh, not this. Not
He might
this
be
And it
the
breaks my
best
heart.
option.
I don't want to be
He
ripping on a
might be
fellow
the best
Canadian
option
Rowan.
on Harden. He might be the best option.
might-
He's got
he
the
might-
size for it.
He might be.
I think that like Jamal Shed, and I've been so negative about him in my tweets, and I do love him. I do think he was a six man of the year candidate. I thought he had a fantastic season. I don't think the Raptors are where they are without him. I think he matters so much to this team. This is not the series for you. Like, there's just starting against a backcourt of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell isn't it. He can't do anything on like the offensive end. To your point, Justin, the 3-point shooting in game one from both him and Scotty, I'm like, this is fantastic. I wish we could get a stop on the other end.
Losing that game when they shot that well is tough.
It's really rough, and also losing game two is really rough, and I think that's why I'm not too pessimistic about what's happening, because I also think losing game two when you had 22 turnovers, a franchise high, and Brandon Ingram decided to have the worst game of all time. I think Will Lew's the one who tweeted out that like, this is the worst game of a Raptors star, and then a bunch of people were like throwing in a bunch of like DeMar games and Kyle Lowry games.
No, this 420 BI is one for the record books, that's for sure.
420 BI is definitely one for the
420
record.
Like, that's how you got to refer to it at this point,
It's
right?
crazy, man.
Yeah. You know what's so crazy is like Kevin Durant also, like, just not to get into everybody else, but like, or all the other teams, we could talk about that maybe towards the end, but like, I was watching him and I'm like, for as many turnovers as he had in that last Lakers game, I'm like, he still moves so much faster than BI. I'm like, and like, it puts into perspective how slow BI is in everything. And I'm like, how are you so sloppy with the ball and you're moving like the sloth from Zootopia? I
Oh,
don't
dear.
understand it.
It's truly something. And like, the Raptors won the fast break battle 16-2 in that game. But like, their efficiency sucked.
Yeah.
They had 16 points on 16 tries, right?
Yeah.
Like that. And it's not like they were a super efficient transition team, but like, there were so many unforced errors there. Like the Jamal Shed one after he blocked the three, like there's such great momentum there, and he just loses the dribble for no reason. Like it was nuts. And one of the things we talked about on our podcast after the game is like, the Cavs won that game because the three best players in that game were Donovan, James, and Evan.
Yep.
Normally when that's the case, like, it's a blowout. but they got nothing from the rest of the team. Like Strus did nothing, Merrill did nothing, Tyson did nothing, Keon did nothing, Dennis Schroeder was actively harmful. Jared was good early, but then they stopped going to him, and they're managing his minutes because of the knee tendonitis, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lump him into that. Dean did nothing. He turned down like a billion shots. Like there were no contributions from the role guys. And when you go on the road, it's usually even harder for those role guys to contribute. So from that standpoint, you got to feel like pretty good about it from a Raptors standpoint. But at the same time, Davs might like, even though it's on the road, I don't know if they're going to shoot 32% on like that quality of looks again from three.
Sandy, you had this question about, which I think gets into the role players here, of like the unsung hero for the Cleveland
Yeah, I
Cavaliers.
was curious, like outside of Harden and Donovan, which player has surprised you the most? Which player, do you think Cavs fans have gained like a new respect for throughout this series?
So through this series, I don't know if it's changed anyone's perceptions. Like I think the fact that Mobley's playing as well as he is encouraging, right? He had a down stretch in the middle of the year when he was dealing with that calf issue, and he's kind of been finding his rhythm for about 2 months now. So to see him, play well in a matchup that's not like super advantageous, right? Like you are going up against an all defensive caliber guy in Scotty Barnes. Like I think that's encouraging. But for the season, I think it was Jalen Tyson, right?
Yeah.
Like there was legitimate reason for him to be, in 6-man conversations, most improved player conversations. Just unfortunately, towards the end of the season, he got hurt, right? Like he was dealing with an ankle for a while. Then he had a toe injury, which is giving me PTSD with Garland, and he hasn't found his rhythm yet in this series. But I think he was the one that kind of changed people's perceptions the most, where people are like, there might be like an all-star upside, or at least in the conversation, like one-time all-star in this guy's future. I think that my favorite comparison that we made to him is like Caron Butler back in the day. Like he kind of fills in a lot of kind of those gaps.
Yeah.
I love what he brings to the table. He seemed to get into it in game two after there was the little tussle with RJ Barrett, which was a lot of fun. But outside of that, like the one role guy that just I think everyone trusts the most, even though he's a little limited physically, is Max Strus. Like
Yeah.
he just fills in all of the gaps. He knows exactly where to be on both ends of the court. You can tell he gets under people's skin. He's just he the perfect role guy. Like I love him. He's up there in terms of all time favorite kind of Cavs rotation players.
Is he also the player with the most playoff, at least
Oh
the furthest?
yeah.
I guess he's the only person who's been to the no, James Harden's been to the finals. I always forget that James Harden went to the finals with the Thunder. That's just
Only one
phew.
that started on a finals team. How about that?
There we go. There we go. Is there like a Raptor sort of player that surprised you? One of the Raptor role players that's really sort of stepped up. And Sandy, to throw that at you as well. Has there been one of the role players where you're like, oh, they're our unsung hero?
I was
And let's
expecting a
sing their
little.
praises. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was expecting a little more from Jacoby. Like when we were doing our series preview, I was like, Cavs fans are going to learn how good this guy is. But it's first playoff series, getting your feet wet, like that's kind of typical. No one surprised me just because I do end up watching a good amount of this Raptors team. But I'll say this: CMB having it translate to the playoffs in his first playoff appearance, that matters to me. Like I don't believe like when people go too far when they're like, oh, clutch gene and like built for the playoffs, all this, like I don't think it's anything like genetic, but I do think when someone shows up, plays their game in a playoff setting, they're not rattled, like that does matter. So I think he's probably been the guy that I would kind of tip my hat to. I've been really, really impressed by him.
Clutch gene is certainly not genetic because Skip Bayless says that Bronny Jr. has it. And we know that LeBron doesn't, so it's not genetic, or maybe it's Sabrina James just, or Savannah. Why did I call her Sabrina?
Don't say
Sandy, who's your person?
Yeah, it's CNB. Like I was really worried that maybe his game wouldn't translate in the playoffs. Especially going up against Jarrett. I was really nervous. I mean, it's a big task for him. And he's shown up. Like he's been great. And I like it's the only thing that's making me happy. And
It's been so great. It's been so great. And I like wanted it beforehand because I was just like, this is not, Yakapurtle series. So sorry. Never felt like it heading into it. So I'm like, it's CMB. Yeah, he's small, but it's got to be him. And to see him step up that way, like I said, my favorite lineup right now are Jamaicans with Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and CMB in there. Let's
Come
get
on.
Jacoby to get in some size. I feel like that's the Raptors' best bet right now. And then BI, wake up, please. uh,
Oh,
y-
I mean, he has to because the
Definitely
slander
need
is
more from
going
your
to
top.
be crazy tomorrow. If he has another showing like that, girl, the Toronto fans are gonna be up its ass. Like I'm. Oh, okay. Anyway, well,
You guys definitely need more from your top guys, right?
for sure.
And Scotty's got 46 points through 2 games.
yeah.
Do you guys know how many of those 46 points came when the game is within 6 points? So, a 2 possession game.
I
Oh,
feel like I'm not gonna like this answer.
Five. Five
Yeah.
out of the 46 points have come when the Raptors are within 6 points. So, like, a lot of that is not coming in like these super pivotal minutes. He needs to be more assertive because you saw the impact. Like in game 2, when he was actually pushing the pace,
Right.
there were
Which is
times where he got the Cavs defense in rotation and created opportunities for other guys,
yep.
right? Like, he needs to kind of be that battering ram and stick to it. He can't take himself out of the game the same way that BI is because BI is going to do what BI is going to do. Scotty needs to be that guy that's consistently bringing that energy.
Yeah. I mean, to
five,
Sandy's point, you
bro.
need him. You
Five.
need him to be. You need him to be more of a guy. And I do think we saw more of it in game 2 than we saw in game 1. And I mean, let's talk about the Cavs a little bit too, because I think this is the time to learn more about the Cavs, and you probably got to throughout most of the season because of the injuries, because of the I think you guys had like a bajillion different lineups, if my numbers are correct.
Yeah.
I think that was yeah. And so like there haven't been a lot of minutes with your top 5 guys all in there, and Raptors obviously starting to get hurt, and Jacoby Walter also questionable for game 3. So I mean, it's just getting worse and worse as the series goes along. Um, this is a time where you guys are actually seeing what a healthy Cavs team looks like against playoff competition.
Yeah.
um, and what is your take on what you've seen from the Cavs so far, especially with that Harden for Garland swap?
Yeah, like I was nervous coming into the playoffs because I believe that the regular season matters, right? Like I think people are a little ridiculous where they're like, oh, you won 60 games, but you didn't win a championship. Regular season doesn't matter. No, there's usually always like matchup specific stuff. Even that year they lost to the Knicks, there was a lot of regular season indicators from that matchup that ended up really mattering.
Yep.
This season, the Cavs did not have a single 5-man lineup that played 100 minutes together
Which is
all
wild.
season long. Their most used lineup only had 86 minutes, and it featured Darius Garland and DeAndre Hunter. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, what matters here? Like,
Yeah.
what can we actually take away? But I do think that the thing that's advantageous is a lot of these guys have played together, right? Like Donovan's not learning how to play with Mobley and Allen. Harden is such a savant when it comes to offense that I think it came very easily on that end. The side that had me concerned was the defense, because James and Donovan, even though Harden's taller, he's a less involved and engaged defender than Darius Garland. You look at last year, and Max Strus was a very good perimeter defender for him. He doesn't have his same lateral quickness coming off that Jones fracture. That concerns me. You had Isaac Okoro, really good perimeter defender. He's not there. DeAndre Hunter, really good perimeter defender. He's not there. Like, basically, their only guys that really rate out well for the season are Dean Wade and Sam Merrill. like that's basically been it, and not like. And Sam's like 75th to 80th percentile, so it's not like he's a stopper. So that was a big concern for me because there were just so many situations where they were overhelping. They were allowing teams to kind of bomb away from 3. But I did feel like there was at least a chance for this to work because the rest of the roster has had a lot of time together. Harden offensively, that should be a pretty seamless thing. And the other thing is, in the past, the Cavs have lost in the playoffs because their offense has fallen off a cliff every single year. And that's been primarily Darius not being healthy, Donovan being asked to run the offense and just not involving other guys. Harden's always going to be available and he's always going to feed the bigs. So I think this was kind of like a true litmus test of, all right, if we're not worrying about who's running the offense and if the bigs are consistently being involved, is this actually enough to make a legitimate push at a championship? I still need to see more. Particularly if you're going to have defensive concerns, is the best measure of your defense how you perform when you can ignore three players, right? Like, and they are cheating off of Scotty, they are cheating off of Jamal Shed, they are ignoring Jakob Pertl out there or CMB, right? Like, they are able to overload and kind of, cheat defensively for lack of a better phrase. And the funny thing is, I think that's still going to be the case if they play, like, if they advance out of this round and they play Detroit. Still probably the case. They don't really have a lot of shooting. So I do have some of those questions, but I do feel really good about how the offense looks. Raptors were throwing a lot of physicality at the point of attack. And the nice thing with James Harden is he can absorb that and you don't really move him off of his spot, right? Like, one of the things that Toronto did in the past to make the Cavs uncomfortable was, all right, we're going to blitz, we're going to trap, we're going to make Darius Garland leap off his feet and try to throw the ball. James Harden doesn't do that. He can just kind of absorb all of those blows and then he's in the lane somehow. So I do feel like at least the theory of why this is going to work in a playoff setting is looking good so far.
Immovable force, really. James Harden is one of the most interesting players, and like it's so weird that this is the second series that the Raptors have had against him. And I'm like going through my notes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that we've been down this road before. Now, I do think that this is probably broken out to be the best case scenario for the Cleveland Cavaliers to try and see how far they can go, at least in the Eastern Conference. What are your thoughts on what this team looks like? Well, for one, do you agree with that? Do you think that they have the best chance to make it out the East, or at least make it to the Eastern Conference with this path versus another? If Orlando had won that game and however else that would have broken out. And also, like, what happens to this Cavs team if they aren't able to do it this year?
I think this was kind of the most favorable path. And to address what you guys said earlier about the Raptors fans feeling good about this matchup, I think that was justified because the Cavs, for all the reasons I listed of not having chemistry and continuity, the Raptors are coming in with an identity. There were kind of these sore spots that they can pick on. And I think there's still the opportunity to do that. If we want to look at the history of 2016, the main villain of that series that extended that series is still on the Raptors roster, and that is the Toronto nightlife. We will see what happens when the series shifts to Toronto. Although there are 2 days off between each of these games, so maybe they have some time for liquid IV or whatever they need.
Not a sponsor.
But I do, yeah. But if you want a sponsor, go ahead and do so. I do think that this is the best path that they could have had this season. I don't know if this is a better roster than what they had last year. I just think the injuries that they had, and I think OKC was a little bit more vulnerable last year. Like, if they could have been healthy for that Pacers series, I think that might have been a better chance at a championship. But I do think that this is a very good path for them. Like, these are going to be favorable matchups, even if Orlando somehow upsets, Detroit, which we'll see how that game goes
They're playing
tonight.
right now, yeah.
Well, like, I think they can feel pretty good about how they match up versus the Magic as well. So I think it's a good path for them, and I think for that reason they really do need to have an Eastern Conference Finals run. And not just that, I think if you don't go further than that, I think it needs to be a competitive series. Because if you show up in the Eastern Finals and this version of the Celtics with Tatum coming off an Achilles tear, just like smokes you in a 4-5 not game series that's not competitive at all, kind of have to ask, like, how close are we to contending? Like, Boston's probably going to get better in the future. We're just going to get a year older, and that's going to impact James and Donovan. Do you do another all-in move, or do you have to kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, maybe we should kind of sink back to the middle for a little bit, retool, and then take another swing in a couple years when we have picks available to us? So I do think that this is a real pivotal season for the Cavs.
I do appreciate the sly dig at the Knicks. Because the Celtics are going to be the team that you face in the conference finals. I like that. Just
I'm
overlook
sorry.
it.
I don't trust the Knicks. I don't believe in the
agree.
Knicks. The Cavs last year swept the Knicks in the regular season, and like some of those games were like no Donovan, and we were doing Madison Square Garland. It was a lot of fun. Like, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. I just feel like you can pick at that every single time up and down the court. And OG and McHale can't dribble. Like, who else is going to challenge you? Like, I just don't worry about them.
OG tries really hard though.
He does.
He's
Yeah.
tried.
Yeah.
He's
He's a great guy.
he's trying. It was so yesterday watching the Lakers. Not to just pivot entirely, but watching the Lakers. We were playing this game of like, it would LeBron be the best player on your team? And we were going through, and I think the only like there were a bunch of teams where we were like, yes, obviously, like I think he'd be the best player on the Raptors. I also got to the Knicks, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, is that mean to Jalen Brunson? But like, yeah, and I think that that's why I was like, yeah, like I don't know that I can totally trust them because I didn't think that he would be the best player on the Cavs. I didn't think that he would be the best player on any other like he's not the best player on the Celtics. He's not the best player on what's another Eastern Conference team? Not the Cavs. The Pistons, no, I think Cade Cunningham is a better player than him. Although
Yeah.
like
Depends how Cade's lung is.
yeah, yeah. Like yeah, appendicitis doesn't help, but I do think that like he's the best player. And just going through it, I'm like, he might be the best player on the Knicks. Is that really disrespectful to say to Jalen Brunson? But like, I think it's a conversation. I at least think it's a time that you sort of pause and think to answer. And that I don't know bodes well for my belief in the Knicks' ability to make it out the East or win a conference finals or anything like that.
Yeah. It's crazy. I keep thinking back to that "this isn't going to last much longer" tweet
Yeah.
with LeBron, and we really like that was 11 years ago,
Yeah.
and we're in year 23. If he plays at a high level again next year, that tweet will have been at the midpoint of his career.
Insane
Like,
to
that's
think
nuts.
about. Insane to think about. Like watching him yesterday, I'm like, how is he the best player on the court right now? Like,
Mhm.
what the best player on the court, period. And it's not even close. Granted, obviously Luka's hurt, but I'm like, these are two playoff teams, and LeBron James very clearly is the best player playing basketball at age 41.
Nuts.
It is insane to think about. But yeah, so like doing that, going through teams in the East and West, if you want to see who is fraudulent and who isn't, and to Sandy's point about the Raptors might be fraudulent because I think guaranteed he'd be the best player on the Raptors right now. Is tough for teams trying to build and contend. Is 41-year-old LeBron James better than anybody on your team currently? Okay, so let's pivot to game 3. We can do this really quickly. What are your expectations for game 3? Jacoby Walter is listed as questionable, so is Emmanuel Quickly. Fingers crossed, both of them are good. For Jacoby, it's an illness. He is sick.
Yeah, I picked when I was picking this series, I said Cavs in 5, and I said if Quickly was healthy and able to contribute, I would go Cavs in 6. Like I think he makes that much of a difference because he can help organize them in the half court. He's, one of their more efficient and like only pull up transition
The
threat from
only
3.
pull-up, the like period. Like,
Yeah, like it's you're forced to play them differently. So his availability is going to have an impact on this. If he's out and if Walter's out as well, I kind of feel like the Cavs are going to take game 3. I expect CMB to start. I do worry about playing him that much, especially against the Cavs' biggest lineups. He's had a great impact on this series, but he is giving up a lot of size, so I would worry about that just a little bit. Game 4, I think Toronto gets that one. If I had to guess, looking at 3 and 4, I think the Cavs take care of business in game 3, let their foot off the gas, and it's kind of a true gentleman's sweep. And it's
Yeah.
another afternoon game, but things get weird.
Things do get weird. I was honestly debating between 5 and 6, and I, in my ever optimism, just said Emmanuel Quickly is going to be there, and I agree with you. I think Emmanuel Quickly completely changes this team. Like they don't have another pull-up threat. There's no one else on the team that you can really look at. For everyone watching and listening, Sandy had to drop off. Her laptop died unexpectedly. But we're going to be wrapping up really, really quickly here. I think that Emmanuel Quickly is, like, he changes the entire offense for this team. He is somebody that is integral to what this team does. I think I had the numbers earlier of what he was able to do in his Cavs, in the Cavs matchup that he had earlier this year. Don't have that in front of me right now. But also, we've been talking long, and you know what? You have to probably scout your Actually, you know what, Raptor fans? We've got to scout our next matchup.
And And also 8 of 12 guys, like, if you look at the top 12 guys in minutes played in that
Yeah,
series, 8 of those 12 guys have not played in this series.
just wild to think about. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
Cavs
there's a
are,
lot of Luke Travers and Lonzo Ball.
which honestly, like I have to say, I was really high on the Lonzo Ball addition for the Cavs in the offseason.
I thought it might work out, but
I
then he forgot how to
was like, it
shoot.
makes sense. And I was like, and then I watched it and I was like, it doesn't make sense. Keep playing him. I remember
No.
like really loving Lonzo Ball minutes against the Raptors. I was like, that's great. So yeah, to me, even more than Jacoby, although Jacoby starting at point, I think would have been really big. I wonder if Darko didn't do that because he was only going to play Jakob limited minutes, and maybe that was like going to be a big change. He of course didn't play him in the second half of starting Jacoby, but I think the size there just matters. I think this is not a Jamal Shed series, and so if you can bring in Emmanuel quickly and you can have that 3 point shooting, I do think it changes a lot. So I think if you're a Raptor fan and you did need a little bit of therapy, we probably were a little bit too doom and gloom, but I do think that there is a scenario and a way that you beat this team. I agree that I think the Cavs was the best matchup for the Toronto Raptors. It made the most sense. You just mentioned how many players were the three for the Cavs. You just went through a slew of players that are no longer here, and if anyone was paying attention, they were all small forwards. Like,
Yeah.
and so that is where the Raptors were supposed to press their advantage with a Brandon Ingram, of course, because the Cavs obviously have the bigs and they've got their guards there, and I think that like the Raptors have an advantage to press. You again, I keep repeating it, turn the ball over a million times. If you have a point guard, that changes. And you also had Brandon Ingram have his worst game, and you still were in it to the very end. I think the Cavs are a beatable team. To your point, Justin, they just have not played together very much, and they're
No.
still figuring themselves out. And the Raptors have had that. So I don't think the series is over. It, of course, isn't over until the home team loses. So we have one more chance to try and extend this. And also, guys, if you lose this, LeBronto extends beyond LeBron James. It sucks, and they have the winningest record against a team in the playoffs with the Toronto Raptors, and I hate that. I hate that it would be Cleveland. Like, I
Here's
don't.
the
It
thing.
makes me
I'll
mad.
give you a little more therapy.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's that winning streak, which is 12 games against one team.
Yeah.
It's tied for another active streak versus the Detroit Pistons. So if the Cavs advance, there's a chance that even
Oh.
if it goes to like
Oh.
13-14, the Cavs could win 3 straight games and you're going to no longer be in that situation. It's possible.
Valid. Very fair. Unless Orlando pulls off the upset. But
Yeah,
no.
then you're in trouble.
Like,
Then you're in trouble.
unless so you win it just to be safe, because you don't know what the Cleveland Cavaliers are gonna do. But yeah, so that was everything. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us today. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and also guys, we're gonna do a Tempo giveaway soon. We're gonna give away some tickets. So do check that out and follow us to have a chance to win some Tempo game tickets this year. Thanks.